May we have your attention, please? Welcome to Weathervane Playhouse. We ask at this time for you to locate your beverage, snacks, and tissue box closest to you. We would like to thank our sponsors: Buckeye Country 107.7 WHTH, Cool 101.7 WNKO, DWA Tax Consultants, The Energy Cooperative, Explore Licking County, Kate 98.7, Kendall at Granville, Licking Memorial Health Systems, Newark Cleaners, the Ohio Arts Council, Park National Bank, Richardson Glass, and WCLT T100.
Hi, welcome to Weathervane Playhouse. I am Kirsten Upchurch. I'm the Artistic Director here at Weathervane, and I would like to thank you for joining us for our fourth Summer Magic opening night. We want to take a quick moment to say a huge thank you to our alumni. Thank you so much, alumni, for all of the stories, the love, the memories, the talents that you are sharing with us this summer. It truly is a gift. Thank you. And we want to say a huge thank you to you, our patrons, sponsors, and supporters. Without your donations, your love, your well wishes, and all of the memories that you have shared with us this summer, we would not be doing as well as we are. Thank you so very much for supporting us and being with us this summer. Okay, so now to tell you a little bit about our fourth opening night. These are some stories that we put together that are a little bit about the crazy of live theater. As you know, the show must go on, and sometimes there are just things that we can't quite account for, or things that happen in the moment that you just simply don't expect. So these are a celebration of those very live moments and how we deal with them, and also a celebration of Weathervane Playhouse and what makes it so special and magical that we keep coming back year after year. All right, enough for me. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm JAROD CALLANDER. I've been involved with Weathervane Playhouse since I was about 6 years old, starting in the children's theater program back in 1989. I've got a lot of backstage memories over the years, from starting out in the children's theater program to doing a lot of tech work behind the scenes, anything from master electrician, sound engineer, technical director as of late. One of my favorite stories is actually one that was one of Matthew Trombetta's favorite stories to tell, and he told it quite often. It takes us back to 2004's West Side Story. This was before Matthew took over as the managing artistic director. He was Tony, and during this specific evening of the performance, towards the end of the show, Matthew, as Tony, is in a beautifully lit stage, centered stage pool of light, dying. And he's waiting to see Maria for the very last time. Unfortunately, Maria wasn't showing up, so Matthew continued to die. And it's hard to say that sentence. He, as a wonderful actor, he tried to continue this on as long as he possibly could, in hopes that the actress playing Maria would show up, and she never did. Now, the behind the scenes part of that is actually, this was before the theater had been renovated, and the new Matthew Trombetta artistic wing, and therefore the new dressing rooms, were put in. The problem was the old female dressing room door had stuck shut with Maria and about half the cast in that dressing room. So nobody knew on stage what was going on, because Matthew was trying to play it off so well. He finalized the show or the scene, and lights went down, and it was a little bit longer pause than normal, and the lights came back up for the curtain call. In the meantime, I was running sound for that show, and I had gotten on the headset to try and figure out what was going on, and they were calling to me to tell me that Maria was locked in the dressing room. So I run down the back staircase through the scene shop to grab a couple of tools and into the dressing room area, where I removed the door from the hinges as fast as I possibly could. And I come to see the girls in the dressing room trying to remove the window air conditioning unit that we had in that wall. There was no windows, it was in the wall. Luckily, they actually didn't accomplish that, and the female cast and Maria were able to get out for their curtain call. Matthew couldn't stop smiling to see that she was okay, and the laughter that ensued afterwards when we figured out what had gone on. The reason this story really hits home and is a great one for me, several years later, Matthew, Erica, and Bryce and I were putting on a Christmas show that we were touring around to different locations, and I of course was setting up the sound system for them to have their show, and Matthew played piano and they all sang Christmas songs, most of which were called out by the cast, and they had a little bit of a script that they kind of stuck with. But every night Matthew liked to tell that story, and it was really funny when he got to the part about somebody taking the door off the hinges, and he pointed to me as I was running sound for the show and mixing all their levels, and the first night he did it threw me completely off guard, and I had to sit back and wave to everybody and then go right back to mixing the show that we were doing there. But that one always stuck in my memory.
I was working wardrobe crew on the Cemetery Club. It was the summer of 2009. And there was one scene where the actresses all had to change into bridesmaids' dresses off stage. And there was one dress that no matter what we did, every single night we had trouble with the zipper. To the point where one show we had 4 of us backstage trying to zip up poor Ellie's dress. And there's dialogue going on the whole time, and it was the point where we completely ran out of dialogue, so poor Ellie was having to improv while we worked on her zipper. Finally, we got it up far enough that we could put the little jacket over the dress and hide the fact that the zipper wasn't done up all the way. And then even after that scene, we ended up having to put her nightgown over the dress because we couldn't get the bridesmaid's dress back off.
How can I possibly condense in 2 minutes my and Rich's history of acting together on stage for 35 years? Well, I had to take some notes on that, and so I hope you'll forgive me if I refer to them for help. You know, we performed on stages across the region, but we were on the Weathervane stage together for 16 plays and musicals. And when you add that to the roles that we played solo on the Weathervane stage, you could say that our years there made for our most cherished memories, not just as actors, but in life. But really, what defined those years more than the acting challenges and learning to work with some really young, talented directors, were the relationships that we formed and the friendships we developed with members of the company who considered Rich and me parents at home. Now, we were flattered by this and deeply honored, but as an actress in her 40s, I was offended. But I'm digressing here. I better get back. I still hear from many of them through Facebook, and I love keeping up with their busy lives. Those years on stage together really rack up some precious memories. Who could forget the wail of the sirens of the police cars right in the middle of a show, or the humidity Oh, 95% until they installed air conditioning. Oh, and the long, silent car rides home. When one of us dropped a line. I lost my acting partner, my partner in life, Rich, in 2007. Now, our 51 years together were so special, beyond even words, but our lives together on stage. Oh, wow. Not many very couples in the area of Granville, Lancaster, Columbus, Newark, were more joined at the hip than Rich and I were. How many married couples can actually share a theater stage for so many years? We really enjoy performing for organizations, whether locally or even around the state. And we called these our dog and pony shows. We enjoy that so much because we could perform some of the dialogue as well as sing some of the songs from the shows that we have performed together. One of my most cherished possessions is a shoebox full of love letters. And these love letters we would receive from audience members who had come to see our shows, and these notes were imbued with love and appreciation for our dedication to the theater. We enjoyed reading those notes time after time, and they would just say thank you for a wonderful evening at the theater. Some of them were even very bold. They would say things like, "You and Rich should consider moving to New York City and perform in a Big Apple." Well, now, that's real inspiration, don't you think?
Hi, my name is Jennifer SANSFACON. I have been with Weathervane Playhouse since 2008. I've worked mostly as the resident lighting designer, but I've also been there as a scenic designer, as a props designer, as a costume designer, in lots of different capacities, and have helped out in lots of different places. I was asked what my favorite blooper moment, mistake, goof, gaffe moment was from Weathervane history. I remember there was one production of Around the World in 80 Days that we were doing, and there's these really cool lights that are up in the grid, that structure hanging above the stage. And these lights, they can do all these really cool things. They can change colors on a dime, and can make any color you want there to be. And it's so cool. And it's, as a lighting designer, it's so incredibly useful. So we were doing Around the World in 80 Days, and there are a lot of different places that we have to go. And in order to try to show that we were going to all these different places, I really, really heavily used those lights to change colors. When we're in this country, we're this color. When we're in this country, we're in another color. And I get this call. I'm not on site, but it's about 20 minutes till the show's about to start. So house was supposed to be open 10 minutes ago. And I get this frantic call. "Jennifer, the lights aren't working. The lights aren't coming on. What do we do?" And I'm like, I don't know. Have you tested this? Have you checked this? Have you checked that? No. Like, we've checked that. None of it's working. Oh no. Okay. Well, I'm going to get there as fast as I can, but like, the show's starting in 15 minutes now because we spent 5 minutes talking. So I hauled over there as fast as I could, and the house was still being held. I'm so sorry for everybody that was being held. But I get there, and as it turns out, we still can't figure out the problem. We have to seat the audience. We seat the audience, And I just look over at our lighting board op and I say, you're still going to push go on all of the buttons, but I have to sit here the entire time and live mix lighting cues so that we can have difference and variation and all the things that those pretty lights up top that are supposed to be amazing are supposed to be doing right now. It was a really wild, about hour 15, hour and a half ish, I think was our runtime for the first act. It was crazy trying to keep up with all the changes, all the things that were happening. And then at intermission, I go backstage and there's a cable that you're supposed to plug into, your wall outlet that turns on the power for all of these lights. And I walk over and it's plugged into the outlet. But then I look up and I go, hey guys, there's our problem. There were two cables connected to one another and they had come undone at some point in time right before the show started. So we were able to plug it in, and Act 2 went a lot smoother, a lot better. So that's one of my favorite memories of a blooper from a live performance.
Hey all. For those who don't know me, I'm Dee. I've been at Weathervane since my first season was in the summer of 2005, and in all honesty, I'm still there now. My story comes from the summer of 2007. I had played woodwinds at Weathervane in the summer of 2005 and 2006, and in 2007, Matthew Trombetta said, I heard you play the piano, and so he asked me to direct. And so the first show I ever actually music directed in my entire life was South Pacific. So one night during South Pacific, pretty early in our run, we were situated up in the orchestra pit. There was 8 of us maybe in a spot that probably could hold legitimately about 4. So we were all crammed on top of each other in that non-air conditioned 100 degrees up in the loft space. And the scene was on stage where the nurse has just had a fight with her boyfriend, and her girlfriends are asking her about it. And we're going to break into the song, I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair. So the actress says the line that starts the whole song, and you have to imagine that this beautiful grand piano is, of course, the wonderful clavinovas that we play at the Vane. And she says the line, and I cue the orchestra, hands down, and nothing happens. So I try again. Nothing happens, and I look and I can clearly see that there is no electricity. So everybody is now ducking and diving and trying to figure out in this mob of people in this crammed-in space where the electricity has failed to happen. In the meantime, I have the cast on stage looking a little panicked, a little worried, and I give them this cue because I have the camera on me and they have the monitor, and I'm telling them, you got to drag this scene out. You got to drag the scene out. So the next thing that I do, I'm on the floor looking for the chord 2. And so I disappear behind the piano when suddenly I hear this line. I don't want to talk about it right now. At which point, I about crapped my pants because out of all the lines for this, I don't want to talk about it right now is not it. So we're still ducking and diving, everybody, and then suddenly a trumpet player jumps up and says, I got it! And he has the electric cord in his hand. He plugs it in. Everything's all right now. I cue the girls. Okay, now. She says the line again. I start the song. I make it about 10 seconds into this sparsely orchestrated beginning of this song, and the keyboard goes out again, and there's no getting it back. The problem is we're already going. There's no coming back from it now. And so the girls are left singing the song with no orchestra, except the orchestra continues to play, but because it's so sparsely orchestrated, the sounds consist of oomp, bop on the drum, beep from a flute, tweet. And those are the sounds that the girls sang to for that song. It was a grand time. That's my tale.
Hi, my name is Tim Stanton. I worked at Weathervane Playhouse from 1989 to 2000. This is my wife, Stephanie.
And I was at Weathervane basically those same years. First volunteering and ushering, and then later on stage. But things about Weathervane that always stood out to us. It's always been a real family environment, a community with lots of local people and talent involved, and very unique because it's an outdoor theater.
Yeah, like in '89 when I first started working there as a intern, we actually had to bring the stage to the theater itself because all four sides were actually tarps, canvas tarps. So when it rained, the rain came in.
And it was loud. And there were many nights that shows were stopped because of the amount of rain and no sound amplification, no microphones, so to speak, in the theater at all. So there were lots of rainy nights that the show had to at least pause before it could go on. I remember even doing the Rainmaker when the show was all about a drought, and yet it was pouring down rain while they're delivering these lines about no rain in days.
Early on in Weathervane, it would be nothing to, in the middle of like a really dark light cue, to all of a sudden have fireflies all over the place on stage.
I remember using them when we were doing Cinderella in the 90s, mid 90s. We actually collected them while we were out back, and then we would let them go in the theater on purpose for like special effects. And the garden scene was our natural fireflies. So animals were always kind of a part of the theater, but it was really more about family and community. And some of the best in Licking County were involved in the years that we were there. Mary Kay Boer in her heyday, Dennis Kohler, Rich and Ellie Unger, Bob Skidmore, and even some that were really young at the time. Valerie Aceta, I think, was like 16, 17 years old when she was doing her first shows, that we were on stage with her or backstage supporting her performance, and David Shane and a bunch of young ones to see what they did later. But community staples. It was a real family, and people came in. I think there were maybe 7 different artistic directors in the years that we worked at the theater. And, the same people would come back with the same artistic director. And so it wasn't just like a one summer and done sort of thing. These were people that came back year after year, and they were like family. And so you would spend the time with the professionals that were brought in, and then people like Tim kind of bridged the gap where he was a paid employee, and then I was more of a volunteer at the community level. But it took everybody to do that and make the summers as magical as they were.
Pick like maybe 1 or 2 favorite memories. Like little things, big things, anything.
Oh, I got one. Okay. So, poor Ricky, who played Charlie Cowell.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
Yes. Well, he got sick, and Kirst had to go on. That's his name, right? Charlie Cowell in the show, I think.
I don't know.
It's been so long. I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. But she had to go on as Charlie Cowell, and she absolutely slayed it. She slayed it. And the audience would have never known that she was not supposed to do that role. So getting to act opposite of her spur of the moment and dealing with that little extra mix-up was really fun.
Hi. So as many of you know, I've held many different positions over the years that I've worked with Weathervane Playhouse. One of my favorite summers was the 2016 summer, where I was acting as the production stage manager. Now, the production stage manager organizes all the schedules for the rehearsal processes, makes sure all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, is essentially like a personal assistant, is the hub of communication, and during the run of the show, keeps all of the cues, the technical cues, happening in the right order and on time, and is the major problem solver in case anything happens during the run of the show. So, Music Man, we had a stomach bug go through the entire cast during the rehearsal process. So during Tech Week, our baritone in the quartet had come down with a stomach bug and had been out the entire Tech Week. We had gone through several different possibilities on how to replace him in case he could not make it to opening night, which was fully sold out, like more than sold out. So we needed to have a full cast with everybody off book. So it came down to it on Wednesday night, the night before we opened, that if he didn't show up the next day, that I would end up playing the baritone role in the quartet during opening night. So I spent all of opening day rehearsing lines, memorizing harmonies, as well as preparing for the next show's rehearsal process, and also preparing my calling script for anybody to step into my position. So it was a very busy day. We get to opening night and the baritone shows up and he's well, and we all, breathe a huge sigh of relief. However, during Act 1, in the middle of Trouble, which is the most cue-heavy number in the entire show, Adam Kirsten comes running up the back stairs, comes into my booth, and he goes, "We've got trouble." I'm like, no, that's the song, Lights Go. And now I'm saying Lights Go pretty much every couple of words in the song. So, so we had this conversation while I'm still calling cues. And he tells me that Charlie Cowell is sick, like we're sending him home sick. And I was like, oh no. And he goes, yeah, so who are we going to get to replace him? And I was like, so as I'm calling this show and paying attention to what's going on stage, because something weird is happening, I'm also going through all of the different character tracks and making sure that, we could possibly, cover it from within the cast. I realize we can't, that the people that need to stay in the positions that they're already in for the top of the show. And I look at Adam and I was like, well, you could go on. He goes, I don't know the blocking like at all. And it needs to be mostly off book because sold out house. Like we were so sold out, even our overflow seating was sold out. So I said, okay, well then our only choice is to put me in. And he goes, who's going to call the show? And I said, well, my show is really easy to call. Follow the book. Wherever you see an arrow, you're going to say the name of the department that's next to the arrow and then say go. So like right here. And as I'm calling, I'm teaching him how to call my script. And he goes, okay. And I was like, okay. So I left my light board operator and Adam in the booth to finish the rest of the show and keep it on track. And my light board operator also had some stage management experience, so he helped a lot. I go backstage to go get into costume. I have my script in hand to go rememorize lines. And I look at Ricky, who is playing Charlie, and I go, there's no way I'm fitting into his costume. He's a 6 foot tall, slender, athletic build man, and I am a 5'5", very curvy woman. This isn't gonna work. The costumers looked at me and go, we're going to have to try. And I was like, all right. And so we look at it and I put it, somehow that costume magically fit me like a glove. Like, unfair. Like, I remember Ricky looking at me and going, that's really unfair. You look better in my suit than I do. And we all started laughing. But I somehow went on that night in Charlie's actual costume. And the show went on without much of a hitch. I was mostly memorized and just didn't know my cue lines very well. And thankfully, Ricky was back the next day feeling 100%, and everything was fine for the rest of the run. So, but sometimes the show must go on, and your stage manager becomes your understudy.
Hi, Weathervane family. This is DARIEN CRAIGO. I was a part of the Summer Magic first in 2009. Incredible, wonderful first time with Weathervane, and I just loved it. So, of course, I was back for more the following year. And a lot of my just wonderful memories come from 2010 when we did The Miracle Worker with Matthew. Just an incredible group of artists, and of course, I'll never ever forget that experience. Thinking about backstage bloopers and antics, many come to mind for this show just because it was very prop heavy. It was a lot of time on stage without breaks and working with children and my dear sweet friend Cherish Myers. We're still in touch, and we are reminiscing about some of the antics that happened during that process. And a fond memory I have was actually in rehearsal. And if you'll remember, if you saw the show or know of the play, the infamous breakfast scene where Annie and Helen are, physically rolling all over the stage, and Annie's trying to get Helen to eat her scrambled eggs at the table. And in preparation for how physical it was going to be, Matthew very, very keenly and smartly was broaching the topic of, in that intimate space, he wanted it to be as realistic as possible. And Cherish was itty bitty when we did that. And so broaching the topic of Helen hitting Annie and vice versa. She slaps her and then Annie, respectfully slaps her back. Like, I'm not going to stand for that. And I felt so uncomfortable just hitting this small, sweet child. And so Matthew was like, okay, Cherish, we're going to practice first and you're going to slap my face as hard as you can. She's this big. And I'll never forget it. Cherish just like winds up and wallops him. And so at that point, Matthew goes, yep, she's good. Go ahead. She'll handle it. So he eased us into that transition. And Cherish and I had a wonderful relationship because of him. And so thinking then, fast forwarding to on stage, because it was so physical, it was unpredictable every night. And I think Cherish mentioned this on the Facebook page, that one night we were using real plateware and glassware and everything, and she accidentally broke one of the glasses in all of the hubbub. And my heart just stopped in that moment, because we're on stage, it's a live audience, and there's now broken glass shards all over the stage that I have to keep Cherish from running into, as she really realistically portrays this deaf-blind child. And so we successfully finished the show without anyone getting hurt. And I've never felt so in the moment on stage than that time. But I'll end with this final memory that, again, in the same scene, we would eat scrambled eggs on stage every night. And one of our favorite parts is when Helen will eat a bite of the eggs. We finally, after all this, like 10 minutes of trying to get her to sit in the chair and eat the eggs, and succeeds, only for her to spit them out on stage all over me. So I think the first opening night that we did this, in the moment, and using the real scrambled eggs, she spit them perfectly, like a perfect spit take of the scrambled eggs. And my reaction was to open my mouth, to which all of the eggs from her mouth entered my mouth. And it just, again, no acting involved of having to spit those out. And so I very quickly learned and remembered to keep my mouth shut in that reaction to her spitting out the eggs, to not eat her own eggs ever again. Oh gosh, just so many wonderful memories from this wonderful theater. And my heart goes out to everybody on this anniversary, and sending my love, and hope we can all be together again soon.
In Little Abner, in 1978, I played Mary and Sam. Now, if you're familiar with the show, Little Abner is based totally on the comic strip, Little Abner, all the characters. And Mary and Sam is exactly who he is. He's a traveling preacher who goes around from town to town marrying people. Well, the director thought it would be neat if I could ride a donkey on stage while I was singing. You're no friend to Mary and Sam, if your name is Sir or Madame. Well, it just so happened that the guy who was mayor of Dogpatch in the show had a little donkey. He had had it for years. His kids rode it around. He said it was as tame and as lovable as anything. He would bring it. So he brought it. His name was Duffy. His name was Duffy because he was so small when he was born, they put him in a duffel bag. And Duffy and I got to be real good friends. Now, the first couple of times I got on his back, I was probably heavier than I am now. But we got along quite nicely. He knocked me off 2 or 3 times, but we ride around out here between the parking lot and the theater. And some nights he would do what he was told. I would ride him in the aisle. They had a little ramp, and I'd go ride the ramp up, pull on the reins, and he would stop, and I'd finish my song and then go on across the stage. Some nights he would come in the aisle, up the ramp, across the stage, and just keep right on going. And you hear my voice out in the wings going, na 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 na. I just finished the song off stage. One night, the guy who owned Duffy showed up, and no Duffy. It seems the guy had 9 children, and they decided they wanted to come and see the show. And he didn't have room for 9 kids plus Duffy in the van. So he brought the 9 kids, and he said, "Don't worry, I brought you a goose." Have you ever played with a goose? They are dangerous. Here I am holding this goose under my arm, and it's snapping at me and biting at my nose and biting at my chin. But I made it through that performance, and then he brought Duffy back.
This is my first time at Weathervane, and I love it, and I want to stay forever.
I love the audience. I love working with them and alongside them and in them in certain aspects. That's what I love.
Yeah, I hate to say the summer magic, but it's the summer magic. Like, it's just such a wonderful community that gets formed in this short little period of time. And it's just, I think it's a lovely area. Like, I just love Granville. I love Newark. I love, for me, from being in Northwest Ohio now, the change of scenery is so awesome. Just to get out of the flat corn and soy fields. I don't know. It's just, we create such wonderful productions in such a short amount of time. And the camaraderie and the talent that's brought here is, I just think, incredible.
That's amazing. I mean, I love coming here. It's you're right, like the atmosphere and the people want to do such good work. It's lovely. My parents also live in Columbus, so it's always kind of a homecoming for me too when I come back. So it's double win.
The people, I mean, this place is like my second home now. So all the people, all the patrons that come, all of the actors that they have in, we always have this phenomenal talent that just keeps coming in. And it's sometimes, we get new people, we have reoccurring people, but it's just this sense of welcoming and understanding, and the sense of, I know it sounds cheesy, the Weathervane magic that happens. It's really, really intriguing to me as an actor. It's very, very fresh and very fulfilling to put up such a quality show in such a short time with talent that then goes on to do really great things. Broadway cruises, off Broadway, really, really great things. So it's nice to work with some phenomenal people that are like at the beginning stages of the career.
All of these things add to some precious memories of all of those years that we spent together on the Weathervane stage.